One of the big questions that's been going around for years now is, should you use mirrorless cameras or DSLR cameras? I've been a professional photographer for close to 20 years now, and originally started on DSLR cameras and have pretty much tried every mirrorless camera out there. And a few years ago went back to using DSLRs and have been using them for all my professional work since. One of the biggest reasons for switching back to DSLR cameras is definitely what I would describe as the overall feel of using the system. Everything from the ergonomics of the camera, the way it feels in my hand, the comfortable grip, the a little bit more substantial weight, which I think makes it more solid, makes it a little bit more comfortable. But it's also the sound and feel of the shutter, an actual physical mechanism moving, the mirror coming up and down. You can feel that when you're taking pictures with a DSLR camera. And I think that makes it a little bit more real. Somehow, whenever I used mirrorless cameras, something about it felt almost fake. And that is probably coming from, me getting started with DSLR cameras, and especially, film cameras, where there's a lot of mechanical and moving parts to it. And you get used to that, and it becomes part of the whole photography process. So the DSLR having those moving parts could be seen as a downside by some people, but I think it's definitely a plus. There's something very real about it, very substantial, that makes you a little bit more connected to the process of taking a picture. And the sound as well. If you get a nice DSLR camera that has a really nice shutter sound, I am using a Nikon D750 right now, and this has just a lovely, quick and very snappy kind of shutter. And you can feel it in your fingertips. You can feel it vibrate through your hand, and it feels very real. It's like playing a real piano versus a digital piano. As great as the digital pianos are these days, something about playing the real thing is just an extra level of connection to the real world, I think. One of the other big reasons for moving back to a DSLR is definitely the optical viewfinder. As much as I have tried medium and high-level EVFs on mirrorless cameras, there is still, in my opinion, nothing quite like the real thing. An optical viewfinder has a number of advantages, and I think it connects to what I said earlier about the way the camera feels, that there's something definitely very real about looking through a mirror and looking through glass versus looking at a small TV screen. EVFs have come a long way. The new ones that are 5+ megapixels are beautiful to look at. They're very nice, but it still doesn't seem like the real thing. And there's a couple reasons why I prefer that. One of the biggest ones is shooting events. When I'm moving either inside, outside, changing lighting conditions, I found that EVFs on mirrorless cameras became a little bit of a distraction. I started to pay attention to things like the color balance, slight differences in the hue that was going on the screen. The refresh rates would speed up and slow down, depending on whether you were in low light or whether in bright sunlight. It became a little bit more of just an extra burden, something that you had to kind of think about as opposed to just being in the moment. The optical viewfinder just disappears. I think that's what a lot of Leica people like. I have shot Leica cameras and owned a few Leica cameras, and I think that there is something really to be said for having the camera kind of vanish away from what you're looking at and allowing you to be in the moment. I just find that it's a lot more natural to look through glass. It's very much like wearing glasses or wearing contact lenses. It's just the real thing. You're seeing the real world. I found that it was also a response issue, and by that I mean how responsive it is. So if I'm walking around at an event and looking for moments, looking for people interacting with each other, looking for people laughing, I find that the DSLR is still so much quicker and more responsive to pull up, put to my eye, and instantly take a picture. It's ready. It's not even a millisecond of a delay that you get on the modern mirrorless cameras, where you're like, okay, I'm waiting for the EVF. Okay, there it is now. I'll take my picture. that doesn't exist on DSLR cameras. You're looking through glass. You could literally have the camera off and be looking through it and still see and frame the picture. It's not the optical system is not reliant on anything other than just the physical world, glass and mirror. One of the other big reasons is lenses. And as much as the camera companies like to put out new generations of lenses every few years, a Mark I, a Mark II, a Mark III lens, and show you graphs and charts about how sharp the lenses are and how much more contrast and resolution they have. I think there's a big downside for me personally with mirrorless lenses. Perhaps that'll change going down the road, but a couple of big reasons why I'm not a big fan of mirrorless lenses are, first, the size. I'm used to photographing with mainly a 50 millimeter lens on this camera. I have the D750, and it's got the 50 millimeter 1.8. And as you can see on this guy here, it's a really small lens. It's only about maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches long as it sticks out from the camera. I had the 50 millimeter 1.8 for the Nikon Z system, and it's twice as long. It comes out to about here, which to me it just changes the whole experience of using the camera. It goes from feeling discreet and feeling very compact to almost feeling like I'm shooting with a telephoto lens. And I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the amount of girth that's on that lens, to me, I always found it distracting. If I had the camera on a strap over my shoulder, it's a lot easier to bang it into a table. It's a lot easier to just bump the lens on something, especially if you're using the lens hood. One thing that I really like about this 50 millimeter here is the actual lens design. The glass elements are very much receded into the lens. So the actual lens itself works as a lens hood. It's very rare that I have to cover the lens. If I will, I'll do it with my hand. I'd never use the lens hood with this lens. I find that it very, very rarely needs it. The cost of the lenses, of course, these lenses here were a couple $100. The mirrorless lenses are $800. So 3 and 4 and 5 times the price for some of the lenses. As a professional, you make that consideration, and if it's worth it, that's fine. But the combination of the two, the physical size of the lenses and the cost of the lenses, I always, when I was using, I had the 51.8, I had the 24-70, I had the 70-200, a 35, and an 85, generally the lenses that I would own in a kit. I found that I was always wishing I had these smaller, AFS lenses from the DSLR era. One of the other things about Nikon lenses was the Nikon F mount, which was around for decades. I actually quite like the Nikon F mount, and mainly because of its smaller size, the smaller opening that I think fits the camera bodies better, and also the huge array of lenses that are out for, that have been designed for decades. I use modern AFS lenses that are light, small, compact, and fast, as I mentioned. But I really enjoy using the AI and AIS lenses, the manual focus lenses, all mechanical from the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s. Just wonderful lenses. The having a real aperture ring, manual focus, and just a fully engaging system where you've got to do everything. It's a very simple design, but the way that they feel in the hand is just beautiful. Really, really great craftsmanship. And the fact that they work natively on the F mount, so the aperture ring actually changes the aperture in the camera. You can see it, and it's registered, and it affects the light meters. And you can use the same lens on a film body without any adapters needed as well. It's just a great thing. The battery life is wonderful as well on DSLRs. I can shoot an entire event 4, 5, 6 hours without ever worrying about changing batteries. You can usually sometimes go 2 events, if you need to, if they're back to back and you don't have time to charge a battery. They just last forever, which is great. especially because when the camera goes to sleep or when it's in full operation, it's not lighting up an EVF all the time and heating up the sensor and heating up everything. So the camera stays nice and cool and draws very little battery power in order to operate. So that's definitely a good thing. I think overall, the biggest reason for me getting back into using a DSLR has been just the connection to the camera and the connection to the moment and the connection to the subject. The way that those three things work together on a DSLR just feels right to me. Not being distracted, like I said, by what's going on in the EVF, having the instant response of the camera, knowing that it's always ready, and just feeling like I'm actually paying attention more to the moment and paying more attention to the subject, I think is just a better way for me to photograph. It's also the same thing when you use a flash. A lot of events, I'll have to use a flash. And mirrorless cameras and DSLRs work very differently when you're using a flash. Most of the mirrorless cameras I've tried will change the way the EVF looks because it knows a flash is connected, and you have to think differently when you're using a flash to when you're not using a flash. Most of the cameras that I've used with the mirrorless camera will change the EVF so that you're not seeing the exposure, you're just seeing a standard exposure, and because it knows the flash is going to fill in the rest. So your mind has to change. Am I judging the exposure based on the EVF when I'm normally photographing, to I have a flash on the camera, now I need to treat the camera more like a DSLR and not pay attention to the exposure and watch the meters. So it's a little bit of a different way of thinking. You have to have both systems in your mind when you're going from a natural light photography system to a flash system on a mirrorless. And I found that just distracting. With a DSLR camera, it's the same. You are seeing the same thing. You know that you've always got to pay attention to the meter, or at least know what's going on with lighting and understand what's happening. And putting the flash on the camera doesn't really change that. You still see things the same way. You're just adding that to what you see. So to me, it's a little bit more logical. It's and again, not something that you have to worry about with a DSLR, which makes you more connected. So all of those things combined brought me back to DSLR cameras, and I couldn't be happier. I think they're classic, really, really great designed cameras. The image quality is wonderful. Using them is fast and responsive and enjoyable. So if you're considering a mirrorless or a DSLR, I would say give them both a try, see which ones you like, but definitely give a DSLR a chance. I would not be surprised if there's maybe one that makes sense to you, even along with a mirrorless camera to have, just to kind of experience what it's like to shoot with a classic DSLR camera. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, if you enjoyed it, give it a like and a subscription. Certainly helps the channel out, and I look forward to talking to you again.